Hello and welcome to the Dofus newbie channel. I'm Nevalon and today I will try my best to give you my personal opinion on how I view every single class in the game. I will mention on how good in my opinion is each class in PvM, PvP, solo and how it works also in a team. And also keep in mind that I haven't played every single class in the game and some of them I will describe from what I've seen, from what I've heard from people that play them. And if any of more experienced players would like to share their opinion, then let everyone know in the comment section and hopefully people will find this video useful. Also, if you would be interested in what elements you should play on certain classes, then I totally suggest Eslik's gaming video where he covered his opinion of what element he finds best at the certain levels for each class. So let's get started. So first class that is on the list is an IOP. IOP is a melee mid-range type of class. It's simply a warrior. Class is incredibly simple and good in pretty much every aspect of the game. In PvM, this class is very often being paired with an Eliotrope, to which we'll get to, and the reason behind it is to increase the IOP skills range and the damage through the portals. I would say that you can without much of a trouble play IOP solo, you will have a lot of damage and some abilities to survive a little bit if needed. In team, this class is definitely common, and as for PvP, I would say that IOP is also solid of a class overall. And you also don't need to really spend too much money in order to gear up the class. You can pretty much play with the really cheap build and still be doing fine with it. Now, another amazing damage dealer is a Kra. As you can tell, Kra is an archer, which means that it has a really long range abilities. Kra is also one of my first mains when I started playing Dofus again. So, as I said at the beginning, this class is really great damage dealer, especially in PvM, but there is few flaws that I would like to point out. Now, Kra is really depending on the map you're playing on and on the team. It is possible to play it solo, but I would say you might not gonna enjoy it to the fullest this way. Endgame, it also can be costly due to the fact that maximum potential comes out of playing this class in multi-element builds, or as many people say, omni builds. And these builds can be quite expensive, if not really expensive. As for PvP, Kra is pretty solid in 1v1s. There's for example one enthusiast that hits really top rating with this class and has multiple of them. But as for team PvP, I would say that very often it's also, as I said, to the PvM part, it's really depending on what you're playing with, what your team setup is. So as much as a Kra is very often used, I would say that there are aspects that might make you want to reconsider the class, but in the end, build well and played well Kra will do massive amount of damage. Here comes now my current main, there is a Sacrier. Sacrier is quite tanky with high survivability potential despite being a class that is sacrificing its own HP. One thing that I wanna mention that endgame wise, due to the Sacrier's passive and the skills that are removing its HP, you might not even need an HP food. After the successful fight, you might receive portion or even the full HP back, which makes the class really comfortable to farm groups of mobs. Overall, Sacrier isn't considered top character, but it definitely has its comfort of playing. It's solid in both PvP and PvM of any kind, so even as a solo player, you possibly can enjoy it. I might even sort of consider it the easiest and most brained solo class for a simple type of content. Eniripsa is one of my nostalgic classes from the past. I think it was the highest level character that I had as a kid. I think it was like around level 50, 52 or something. But we are not here to talk about nostalgia, especially that Eniripsa used to be different back then and not so long ago in update 2.68 it got completely revamped. It's hard for me to exactly say much about the current state of the class, cause I haven't played her much after the changes. People say that it kinda lost on healing and buffing, but it definitely gained on damage. PvM, I think it's still decent support for the team, possibly even slightly better now for solo players. In PvP though, it's definitely currently one of the strongest classes in the game, possibly will get nerfed more or less obviously. But I definitely would say that this class might be worth a try and remain solid no matter what. Now here is a class that I will not agree with the difficulty star rate. It is considered easy class by an Nkama by giving it just 1 star difficulty, but I personally would add another one and let me tell you in a moment why. Let's mention first few aspects of the Sram. One of them that makes the class unique is invisibility. Sram has two types of invisibility. One is single target that can be self-casted or used on an ally, and another is the 3-cell glyph called Mist that makes every Sram ally invincible as long as they remain inside of it. In case of regular invisibility, Sram have certain abilities that won't reveal him, such as traps or poison. Any direct damage from Sram or any other character that is invincible will reveal them. In case of Mist, players can use any spell and they will just show the position from where it was casted, so in the end they still can trick enemies about where they can be and remain invincible as long as the mist is on the map and they are inside of it. So now the reason why I personally think that Sram deserves at least 2-star difficulty is trap mechanics. Basically, people can create trap lines by placing specific traps in order to make them, for example, position different. And this specific mechanic, in my opinion, requires quite a bit of good understanding of how to place the traps and in what order. And that can be confusing and difficult for people to understand it and master it at first. Sram is definitely a class that endgame can also solo the dungeon bosses due to the poison, invisibility, and its positioning skills with traps. Although long term, in my opinion, the gameplay solo with it might not be too appealing, but at the same time it's not the worst choice. PvP, this class is definitely very solid and is all about the mind games. I would say that this is the type of class for the people that really wanna put investment into it. In certain cases, also can be really expensive if you wanna maximize potential of the trapline Sram. I might one day make a video about the Shram's traps in order to give you a better understanding, so stay tuned with the channel. Time for something for Fury enthusiasts. Obviously, just kidding, but maybe. I could wrap this class in a really simple way, great in every aspect of the game. People very often use Ouginak in the team, it also can be played easily in solo. If built agility, then due to the stripping spell, he does a bunch of damage depending on how many of his allies are surrounding the target. It also doesn't need too much money investment in order to enjoy it. Definitely if you are interested in the class, then you can easily try it. Time for 2-star difficulty classes. Forgelance is the newest class in the game that was introduced in update 2.66. Now, there is not much that I can say about its potential in PvM. I think that due to his spell not requiring line of sight and pretty solid AoE, it could be a fun class to play whether solo or in team, but at the same time I personally really rarely see it. It definitely does amazing currently in team PvP, but the build is also quite expensive. Although in 1v1 I still would say that you can play some budget builds and possibly have fun with the class. I think it's a class that could be somewhat enjoyable, but at the same time maybe not find much uses in certain activities. Unless there is something that I don't know, then let me know what you think about it. I would say that this class is for people that just simply want something different. Osamodas is another class that I used to play a lot as a kid, but now I will say that I wouldn't recommend it for solo players and maybe in PvM overall. The problem with Osa, in my opinion, that it's really depending on the summons, and those can possibly die quickly, forcing Osa to respawn them and wasting the AP for it. If you want to, then maybe you can possibly use it somewhat as a support with intelligence build, if you wanna just have something unusual and different in your team. But this is one class that might not be too good for this. PvP wise, it's completely opposite, cause this class is really strong. It also isn't too costly for that aspect of the game, but playing with it sometimes might be really frustrating due to the summons having less time to do the turn comparing to character itself. Enutrof is a silly, elderly class. It does pretty much a little bit of everything, from dealing damage to healing, buffing, debuffing, or summoning. It's very commonly used in teams, whether it's melee or range. As for solo potential, it can also I think be alright, but in team does the greatest. PvP wise, it's also pretty solid. It's basically high utility class. Another Fury character and another damage dealer, not as good as Iob, Kra or Ouginak, but this class still can do pretty solid range damage and also has a lot of healing and shielding spells, so it's kind of a damage dealer with some support type of a kit. It's pretty good in both PvM and PvP in my opinion, and if you wanna play it solo, then I think you can possibly do that as well. Time for something for machine enthusiasts. Foggernaut, or as French people call it, Steamer. Foggernaut can be played in various ways. The class' main strength are the turrets. You have 6 types of turrets, but you can only play 3 of them in the fight, due to the other being just a variant of the spell. You can play this class as a damage dealer or a support. It should work no matter what you wanna do in the game. As for the damage type of build, it's another class that's best potential might be the Omni build. Although I think you can also play it single element and still have pleasure playing it. Another really great of a support class. Feca is known for its damage reducing buffs. It can also be played in any type of team, whether it's melee or range, just like Enutrof. You can also play it easily solo, although its effectiveness might be sometimes slow. If you decide to play it melee, then maybe consider using weapon instead of its regular spells. PvP, it's also pretty solid of a class and is really annoying to play against. Huppermage is a class that has quite interesting mechanic, which is applying elemental states. Each combination of the states applies different type of effects on the enemy. Now, if you want to get a better understanding of how those work, then maybe Benjamin's video about it might come handy. Personally, I think this is pretty fun class that any type of build works pretty well on it. I think as long as you master the mechanic of managing your states and glyphs, then you really can have a great time playing Huppermage. Solid in every aspect of the game. Now, this is the class really well known for its shielding abilities. It's called Masqueraider, or in French, Zobal. There is no such a class that can apply a bunch of shields on himself and its allies. I think the only complicated part of this class might be managing the masks, because depending on which mask you're gonna wear, certain spells are going to be available for you and certain spells will not be. This class is really amazing in team, and as for solo, I think it's also pretty good. And same for Feca, if you wanna play it melee, then I would suggest that you might wanna play it with a weapon rather than with the regular spells. In PvP, this class is also doing really great. So I think as long as you get the understanding of what masks you should wear in certain cases, then you shouldn't have much of a trouble playing it. Now this is last furry class in the game. Pandawa is one of the strongest positioner in the game, but most importantly, it's really simple. You can just pick up the target and throw it wherever you want. This class will suit anywhere. Very often people use Panda even as a tank, where they simply maximize their resists, vitality and luck in order to tank the enemies in PvM. It's definitely great class for pretty much anything, and people would very often want a Panda in their teams. I also would say that it's not that difficult once you get the feeling of it. You can play it in team, you can play it solo, and PvP wise, it's also doing pretty good. We are stepping into 3-star difficulty, and first class is an Eliotrope. Now I mentioned before that it's very common to pair Eliotrope with an Iob, but anything can work well with it. Elio's strength are portals. Those can pretty much allow Elio to control the map if placed properly. They also increase the spell damage. Now, in order to understand the Eliotrope portals, again I can suggest you 2 videos. One is from Benjamin and another is from Miko. Even if you are not going to play an Elio, it's good to know how possibly to use portals in case you would get a chance to play with this class in the team. Simple understanding of how to cast spells through portals would be good enough. If you also want, I might make my own video on how the portals work, so let me know if you would like to see it. The class itself is pretty great, but requires investment and might be really unforgiving if you don't know how portals work. I wouldn't suggest it for the beginners definitely, but once you would get some experience in Dofus, then you might try to think about it. Back to nostalgia again for me with Sadida. Currently, I find this class really slow to play with. I personally don't know if Sadida deserves a 3-star difficulty, maybe would put it 1 lower, but at the same time I feel like I'm missing full understanding of the class. I think that in some way it's possible to play it solo, and even to use it as a support in a team. In PvP, it's also pretty solid of a class, but at the same time, maybe it's better to think about it before giving it a try. One thing I can say for sure that it's an annoying class to play against. Rogue, or as French people say, Roublard, is another class that till now I almost never see in PvM. This class takes a long time to set up its bombs and probably would rarely find a use there. As for PvP, it's pretty solid and definitely fun to play. The feeling once you get to the point where you can explode the enemy can feel really amazing, but also requires really good positioning skills. Definitely as a new player, you shouldn't play it. Last class on our list, and also the class I used to enjoy as a kid, Xelor. Xelor is pretty crazy positioner. Mains of this class will always find a way to surprise you of how they can drag your teammate from one side of a map to another. Just to deal damage, I would say that Xelor is medium type of difficulty class, but definitely its positioning skills require a lot of experience. Class will do really good in any aspect of the game, in my opinion, but you must put a lot of time and possibly money in order to really call yourself a Xelor main. This is class, if played really well, can often leave the impression of, wow, Xelor can do that? Totally fun to watch and fun to play, but it's really hard. So here is my personal opinion on each of the classes in their current state. I hope that you could find this video useful and that you will not regret your class choice. Also remember to like this video so others could see it too. Make sure to also check out my Discord server that I'm trying slowly to grow, and also my Twitch channel, links in the description. So that I think is it. I really appreciate you for watching and take care.